What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode here on the ArchiTech Network. Today, we're going to be jumping back into the crazy world of AI, and we're going to be doing this with Wanyu He, who is the co-founder of LookX.ai and also the company Xkool. Both of these companies are super interesting. You've probably heard of LookX.ai more recently. It is the world's first architecture-trained diffusion model, and you can go and check it out. I've got the link underneath the video where you can go and add your prompt, and it's trained in architecture stuff. So you can pick out your favorite star architect, whether the image that it will create is like a model or a render or something like that. It's a pretty incredible tool. And also, LookX.ai was kind of created in Xkool, and Xkool is a company that she founded in 2016. A very interesting company that is somewhat of a tech company for architects, where they make AI software for architects to use. And they kind of work in a number of different ways. Sometimes they kind of consult with architects to help them use some of these tools. Sometimes they collaborate with them on competitions. They've even done competitions using these tools as a proof of concept and actually won some of the competitions, which is super interesting. So we're going to be delving into all of that with Wanyu, and also talking, of course, about the future. I think Wanyu is really a pioneer of AI in our industry. She's been utilizing it since 2016, way before all of this mid-journey era and image diffusion models. And so we're going to be talking about AI before that era, the era that we're in right now, and also what's in store for us for the future. As always, though, if you like this video, give us a like and a subscribe, and share this with your friends and colleagues so that we can share this knowledge around. You can always follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, where we post upcoming talks, videos, and events that we have, so stay tuned for all of that. But without any further ado, let's jump into it and have a chat with Wanyu. All right, that's it. We're live. Wanyu, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. I'm very excited to have a chat with you.
Hello, Lee. It's my pleasure to be here. It's really honored and looking forward to talk to you today.
Great. So I thought it was, again, AI has been a big topic over the last every podcast right now. But I wanted to jump back onto this topic because there's so many things going on. And obviously, you guys have released a super interesting tool that's changing our industry a lot. But having looked into your background and stuff, I was really amazed at all the kind of things. You're very much a pioneer in this space. So we won't just be talking about LookX AI. We'll be talking about your whole background leading up to that. But just to give the audience a little bit of a background in case they're kind of a little bit new to you, I've given you an introduction in the intro, but I always do these little bullet points. So it's kind of interesting looking into your background. You've very much come from an architecture background of real world architecture, building stuff, right? You've spent 8 years at OMA, and I think we were just discussing you worked on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange, which must have been super interesting. You've spent a little bit of time in academia. You've taught in Hong Kong U, and also you did your doctorate in Florida, FIU, where you studied AI and space architecture, which is a very interesting combination. And then you went on to found Xkool, which I understand stands for Xkool House, but I don't know if that's true. And of course, LookX.ai somewhat recently. So yeah, I think you've got this really interesting background of actually coming from working in practice to being more in this tech space, which I think is super interesting. So I think an interesting point to maybe start off with you is that transition from working as an architect in OMA, right? And I think you studied at Delft, and I think you were kind of studying some stuff in computation and the technology side of things. Where do you feel that this transition came from the architecture world to more like AI and of course space architecture as well? Where did this transition and stuff come? Were you using computation and technology a lot in the OMA days, or was it something you kind of pursued after OMA?
Actually, before OMA, just directly to answer your question. Yeah, because I was studying in Berlage Institute. Now it's part of the TU Delft. And when we started to choose our direction, there was two paths. One is a more theoretic, and another is a more like combined to the technology part. And I choose the technology. The reason is I always be fond of the new tech, the future, when I was a kid. So this is always what I reach into joining. And then I started with all those things. But after I joined OMA, I found, wow, it's different than I thought. I mean, architects' work is totally different. It's not that much advanced, let's say. It's a quite quite traditional. Yeah. And even really the top office like OMA, still a lot of bunch of talent people, we sometimes wasting our talents there, because we're not just dealing with the innovation, we're also dealing with a lot of dumb things, change quite a lot, and the time and time again repeating some words. And that part made me feel, confused in the beginning, and later on feel, no, I cannot stand on it anymore. I should do something to change it. Yeah, that was a long procedure.
Yeah, that's super interesting that you brought that up, because I think it's true. There's even some of the top firms in the world, there's still a lot of antiquated, slow things we repeat. Even myself, I'm always talking to architects like, hey, stop copying that around. We can just script that quickly and stuff like that. And it always seems somewhat of an uphill battle. But yeah, that's interesting that you raised that point. Okay, so that's super interesting. So when you're working in OMA, were you also trying to utilize tools like computation and things like that, or you at that point were you even experimenting with very early AI software or anything like that?
Unfortunately, no. I was trying to, especially my first years in Rotterdam. I only found a few chance to apply what I have learned from Berlage, that is the algorithm design. And there was only 2 times I think I can use it. First time was we do some kind of facade, and then they wanted some variations of the facade, looks more interesting. This is the one case. Another is try to allocate different master plans, but that option wasn't be adopted. Most of the time, OMA doing things with blue forms. So we have to call the blue forms a lot. And then drawing CAD. And then building Rhino. That's what we do. And in Rhino, sometimes you can use some scripts to reduce the amount of work, but still, that is not the most heavy load part of work.
Yeah. And to be fair, actually, I because you often see firms at these different conferences and stuff like that. Now you mention, I almost never see people from OMA. I do get the sense they have a slightly more traditional design process. I should try and find a few people from the OMA tech team and reach out to them to come and show us what they're doing. But yeah, I can imagine that. So that's interesting. And then of course you then went on to found Xkool. And so maybe explain to the audience, what is Xkool and how did that come about? Because I've been listening to a few of your podcasts and it's been super interesting. You're kind of a tech company, but then you've also been doing these architecture projects and competitions and stuff like that. So maybe talk to us about how did Xkool start and what is it?
Yeah. Actually, it started with the idea that we want to use a new tech to change this industry, at least for ourselves in the beginning. This is something I've learned from OMA. That's why I didn't go to like a UN studio in Netherlands or Zaha in London, because I think the most valuable thing of OMA is the thinking, the thoughts.
Right.
And that is also the key of architecture. Why was just the young bird freshman into Berlage Herman Hertzberger, as the dean, said, he asked us, what is architecture in your mind? And the people said a lot of things like space, light, circulation, functions. And he said architecture is about thinking. And that is something really new to me. Because I thought architecture is space and experience. But he said something totally different. And also I found in RIM's theory, it's also about thinking. It's about all the arguments, all your positioning, all your scenarios. Those kind of things, I think, is the most important part of the architecture, of the design. And that value is not revealed sometimes because a lot of people spend too much time on the form or on the functions. And that is something I think that is something we should release the architects from. Yeah, that's the starting point of Xkool. We want to relieve ourselves. First of all, of course, myself. I don't want to draw this plan again, like to calculate what is the basement. Line. Yeah, that's insane. Especially when you become a senior architect, people expecting you to understand all those details of the architecture. So you have to look into the details with the regulations, everything. Also, talk to all those engineers from MEP, etc. But that is not the most valuable part. And I was always into the valuable part of understanding the circumstances of the project and what's the demands or the requirements of the client as well as the society. And we found our own position, and we can find the crucial point and our argument, and we can set up our scenarios, and then it's our solution. And design, that's the last thing. The first part of all those procedures is the most valuable part. And till today, I still appreciate that part. And this is something I also try to talk to my students about. That is the key of architecture. So back to Xkool is, it's like you said, Xkool is also extremely cool. Also want to carry on something out from RIM. Yeah. And that is the thinking part. So we think the valuable thing is the thinking, is the operational research and decision making. And that is the most valuable part. But rest, we can estimate. Maybe some parts of the work is interesting and it's valuable, but the value is not just you draw it, but you can see it and you make decision. I made some kind of example of OMA. You have at least the 3 levels of architects. First is the junior and or interns and the freshmen. And second is the senior and architects, and the top are those partners. But people do different things in different level. The juniors always doing models. Even the intern coming in do the model all the time. And this is something I don't think they find is fun. But they also find some fun of it. It's when they're making different options. And those options you will find is a kind of a typology, actually. It's the strategy to do it. Those senior architects or the project architects will lead a group of young guys to do, okay, you do this direction and you do that direction, and those guys do another direction. And each of the small team or each person can create 5 or 3 or 5 options with the models, and you gather together and find 50 of it. And this is what they do. But the project architect, what they do, they say, okay, this category, we don't like it. This category doesn't fulfill the requirements. This category is not suitable for the content. So we do deductions. We cut out all those options. We make decisions out from those 50 different possibilities. And then we got 2 options out saying, okay, Ram, you choose which one you like. Yeah, this is the final decision, final call he will make. However, he will not look into the form. He will ask some really interesting question about it. For instance, there was a project I did with him in Kuala Lumpur. So it was a competition, Kuala Lumpur Financial Center. And there was two options. One is more like a circular shape, and something pops out from it. It's a really big scale. Another one is I did with the algorithm to generate different volumes according to the site condition, the circulation, etc. Finally, he didn't ask anything about the form. He was asking, who is the party there? What's their agenda? And what is their vision of? And we say, okay, this party is new and they want to union or reunion all the different religions, different races. And that's their, a way to propaganda themselves. And then say, okay, we select the one can show or represent this unionship. Then we choose this, or he choose this circular typology. So this is how he make decisions, and because he got his position and he got his perspective of things. So this is the most valuable part, and this is what we do as a tech company. We provide options to the architects and help them to make right decisions. So this is the philosophy behind how we established this company. Yeah.
That's super interesting. I think you're obviously, I work at Big, which is what they call a baby REM, right? So our design process very much follows that similar process. And I've been having a lot of conversations recently about this, of course, this whole AI image generation thing, which is mind-blowing. But also, I'm kind of within the office, I'm kind of like seeing where are we going to use this? Because on one hand, the magic is exactly what you said, the thinking, the actual research. I'm always like in admiration of the teams, how much research they put into, and it's super interesting to see like the questions they have. It sounds like a very similar process to what you had at OMA. Whereas I look at other architects that are maybe more style based, like maybe like a Zaha or a Gary or something, where they seem to deliberate over the form. And I could see how image generation can be completely used in that kind of office and scenario, because they are kind of starting with the image in a way, or the image is the kind of somewhat the end product, whereas in what you were describing is a much more process driven, and the form is really a reflection of the performance of the building or whatever it is dictating. So I think there is a really interesting comparison there of like this AI era we're in and the type of architect you are, or the practice you work for is, which I think is really interesting. I was watching some of your videos of this kind of tool that you have, where you're able to analyze and then look at all the information that you have and then come up with many different options. And you even use this, right, in or you have used this, or other architects have used this in competitions. And was it at this point you started to use this technology to enter competitions with your own software and tools that you had, right?
Yeah, we actually team up with architects. We barely do it by our own. We try to empower certain architects, and they are embracing us. So we also support them with all our capabilities. Some are more mature software. Some are like algorithms still. Some are something we test in the lab. So this is a really fun collaboration. We know these architects have their certain aspects or their way of thinking. And that is somehow we can really maximize the tech part, and they can also maximize their thinking part. And this is a good combination. We tried it several times, and we really got a really good results out from those.
I'll have to put in the video you did with Niall and on the digital futures, right, where you were explaining that you had a competition, and I think you'd won it, or you were one of the top top picks, and then they found out that you were a tech company, not necessarily like an architecture company, and they were like, "Oh, are you allowed to be in this competition or something?"
Yeah.
And it seemed like a really pioneering way where you're kind of like testing your technology and ideas, but in a real world scenario. And I thought that was a really interesting example of your using this. And the interesting thing about all this was not recently, like within the last year or so, when we've been living in this, I guess, mid-journey era, right? This was kind of a few years ago. So you were really on the pioneering end of using these tools. And I guess back then you would maybe fall under the umbrella of generative design, right? This idea that you feed a bunch of information or parameters and it generates a bunch of options, but really you were using different forms of AI. Would that be correct?
Yes, we started in 2016, and why we started in that year, because we inspired by the AlphaGo. That is really the reason, because even 5 years ahead than 2016 was 2011. We start work with I start with work with my partner, and we won a competition by his name, and did this algorithm design, generative design. At that moment, we're thinking maybe we can do something like differently. I can create from OMA, and you can create from your New York office. We can do something like interesting. But at the moment, 2011, we found it's impossible. The reason why is there's no new technology. There's no new algorithms. It's all like traditional, all those logical algorithm and machine learning, expert systems, etc. And this is one thing. Algorithms are not that compelling compared to today. And second, we don't have data. There's no data coming out because at that moment, it's just the starting of mobile smartphones. And third thing is there's no computational power. We did the algorithm to generate our stuff, but it take out 3 days to get results. It's insane. So at that moment it's not possible. But 2016, everything makes sense, because there's a deep learning coming out, CNN, convolutional neural networks. It can mimic stuff and to generate stuff, not from algorithm, not from logic. It was out from data. And this is give us a really good example. Because doing the Go game, it's really like you allocate for instance, the houses on the plot, or you allocate your rooms in the floor plan, or you allocate all the components in a room. So we found out, wow, this is something we can really start to work with. So we started in 2016 and start to use all those deep learning algorithms. First the CNN, then GANs, generative adversarial neural networks. And nowadays it's more like a diffusion model and some other algorithms as well. So it's a different path, because we found out the traditional way of a generative or parametric design doesn't really work. That already back to 2011. So in the day one of Xkool, we call Xkool.ai. We have our website and everything be set based on a cloud, based on data driven, based on algorithm driven.
Wow. And so now Xkool, is that something that, do you have a lot of architects using that? Is that something that someone listening can go and test out right now? Or how does it work now? Is this a tool available for people to use?
Today, Xkool's software is mostly like supporting our so-called members. Those members are the architects we would like to work with and to support them with all our capabilities. So we team up for competitions or even some commissions. So it's a different way. It's not a subscription that you can find online. So it's more like
you're almost like an AI consultant in a way. Would you like
We also provide them softwares. Now they can also use it, but sometimes we are consultants. Yeah, we provide them some solutions. It's more like that when we work with architects. But then LookXai is different. It's something we can, like, for the public use. Everyone can join in to use it. So it's a different mindset. Because the previous one, we were still like testing. And it's a more in detail. It's not the 2D graphics. It's a more 2D geometry and 3D geometries. So it's more precise into the real projects. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So yeah, as you said, you've now, like, LookX, I guess, gave birth, so to speak, to LookXai, which was the kind of image diffusion generation thing. If people from the audience haven't tested it, I'll put the link underneath the video. But you are or were one of the first architecture-based AI diffusion models, right? Where people could go and you could put in a prompt, you could pick a different architect or a style, like a physical model versus a render and things like that. And it was the first kind of architecture trained AI, right? So was that, how did that come about? Was it something you developed obviously in Xkool, and then you decided this could be a really amazing tool for everyone, and kind of turned it into a product, so to speak?
Actually, we did the researches about image generation back to 2018, and in 2019 we also issued a paper about it. We call "This Building Does Not Exist." It was using GANs to generate images. And I think I also shared some work with a new niches forum like Digital Future online. And that moment, people saying, wow, this is really cool. Can you go it a bit further? But with the GANs, we can only do like a smaller size of the images, and it's not precise. It's not like a diffusion model. You can really be dilute to the really small particles and make it really nice. But generative adversary neural networks is still workable with some certain paths, but the effect or the outcome is not as perfect as today. So at that moment, we think, no, this is not yet to be a product. It can be some of our capability we can offer to the architects, but it's not a public platform yet. So it was like a long time study already. And then we have today LookX. And all those data we had, some of those were generated out from the previous models. And some we collected from our collaborators, etc.
Yeah. And it's, of course, kind of taken the architecture world by storm. I think, we're in this, I guess it's the AI diffusion era right now, where it's becoming, I guess the diffusion side has made AI much more mainstream for architects. It's very tangible for them to type something in and they get what looks like a render. How do you see either your tool, LookXai, or this diffusion model? Where do we kind of sit within the within AI in the industry? Because this diffusion model, for example, from my perspective, it's mind-blowing. Like I said, I'm still like looking at many different people using it. Of course, you got the people on social media that are kind of posting things every day and blowing up on social media. We've been testing it in the practice. I've been testing it in my own like ways, and I've really been trying to see where it fits into the design process, because like you said, that render or like that image is just an output of this thinking process. But then you see other people that are kind of using AI as the kind of inspiration, or they start with the image and work backwards, which is also quite interesting. But what's your perspective of the era that we're in now, particularly with this AI image generation era in our industry?
I think in different countries or different areas, architects, they took it differently. If this country is still under massive development, I think most architects will be forced to do fast work. So they do the image generation, then they work backwards to make some geometry look like it. I think that this is the background they are facing. I mean, the real world they are facing. We cannot judge that. Of course, if you can step back and think, oh, this is not the right way to do it, then you can really follow the way I think is a more logical to think through what's the real issue here and what's the problem we would like to solve and what's our positioning to do so and what's the argument could be. Then you can make decisions out from those nice images, because the image is just the images. Everyone can do image. Those images doesn't make you any like a competitive power out of it. No, because the AI actually give the rights to everyone can do the same thing. And what is the value of you then? That is the value of architects. I mean, this mainstream, you cannot stop it. It's coming. So we have to think like, what is the real role of architects? We're not just making images, making models. Because eventually, of course, the generative AI will make 3D models. We already did in some certain typologies. But then when that comes, so what will you do? We are losing jobs? No, I don't think that is the solution, and that is the end of architects. I think that is the chance architects can really rethink what is our role, what is our value. I still completely agree with the Dutch philosophy that the architects bring thinking to the project, can really through thinking to answer the question of the society, the question of the environment, etc. So when we're facing all those options, we should really take back and think, what is the question and what I want to do here? It's not just selecting some nice images.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's a really nice sentence, like architecture is thinking, architects are thinking. And I get asked this a lot, like, is AI going to take over jobs and all this kind of stuff? And for sure, it will disrupt things. But like you, I think it will allow us to concentrate more on where we add value, which is this thinking process, and reduce the time that we do coloring in stuff on Photoshop or like drawing plans line by line and stuff like that, and free up that side of things. And I think that's where it's the most interesting, is like, I think the era we're moving into is this AI collaborative era. And exactly. I actually think the work that you've been doing with Xkool and all this kind of stuff is really pioneering, particularly those competitions where you're kind of really utilizing these tools. Your architects collaborating with AI to create new and interesting proposals. And I really think that's the future. And the other thing I heard from that talk was the team you that were working on this project was actually very small, right? And I think AI gives you that power that you could potentially see more or a more diverse range of architecture firms, like smaller firms that are able to compete and tackle on large projects because they're aided by some form of AI, whether that's, diffusion models or whatever it is. So I think that's what's excites me about the future. I'm not so scared that, the robots are coming, so to speak, and take over our jobs. But architects do need to pay attention to us and not ignore it, because I think we have a natural tendency to be like dismissive of this thing, particularly with this AI image generation, where you're like, it's just an image, just next. But it's really important to kind of stay on track with these developments. Given that you have a bit of insight into this, and you've been working with this for almost a decade at this point, how far do you have a sense of how far away we are from 3D models, which I know there's various different platforms that already, you type in stuff and you get a 3D model, but I guess specifically for us as architects, we're almost talking about a BIM model. Like, Do you see this as something in the near future because everything's moving so quickly, or will it take time to be able to generate, models that you can actually use to build things?
It's a good question because today everyone is looking into 3D geometry generation, not just the architecture industry, also like a film or game especially. However, they don't really need precise 3D model as we do. So they are more like generating those image envelopes. That will be comparatively easier, let's say. Yeah. Of course, when you want to be more like detailed and looks more real, of course, it needs some time. There's some research predict need 3 to 5 years to make it as mature as today's image. However, this is something not that relate to what we do as architects, because architects don't want just envelope. We need geometry to be precise. And that is something what Xkool was doing in from the beginning on. Because we thought there is a new form of the architectural data is be required in this new era. Actually, there was a standard that ISO created called the SMART standard. It's from level 1 to level 5. Level 1 just drawings and sketches. And level 2 is scanned those drawings. Level 3 is called a machine readable document like CAD. And you can edit it, you can save it, you can copy it. And then level 4 is a machine readable content. It's not just the content itself, but it's readable, means it has some data in it. So that's to our industry, it's more like a BIM. But in the future, it's a new typology. It's called a machine interpretable content. That machine can self-generate, self-learning, self-iterate, and even machine can communicate to each other through this kind of new format. And in that way, it requires some new type of data which is not existed today. And we were trying to do so. And we started this one we call the AI-driven building information model on cloud. And that is something new because it's all cloud-based. And it's not a Rivet BIM. It's a BIM that according to the IFC standards, but it's in 3D geometry. And with this new type of form, we can have the machine generate 3D objects with a precise geometry, the vectors, and all the information. The most important thing is it's not just the content model as a CAD and BIM all have, and it also contains the data. BIM also have it, but it also contains the most important thing is we call the rules. But this rules is not just the regulations. It's also the rules. It's like the law you abstract from large amount of data. Machine learned from all those big data. So those are things where the capability or part of the capability of a human architects to understand the regulation, to understand the code, to understand the rules. For instance, for a company, they have certain rules. So those things we can really embed it into the system. And the result of this is that machine can start to generate things out from it. We call it more like a data-driven mode, which is different from the traditional way we always do as a graphic-driven mode. What is graphic-driven mode? It's like I have a thought. I will draw it out. And this is the graphic. And other things needed in this industry chain, for instance, what's the cost? What's the regulation checking? You have to measure it out time and time again. This is a loop we always lost in between. Because when we talk to the client, his imagination, our imagination is different. And when we do things, our imagination and our hands can make something, it's different. There's second gap. And third gap is when the design be made out, is it fit for the regulation, the requirement, the code? have no idea, have to test it. And this is the third gap. And the fourth gap is when everything's done, you go to the cost estimation. Wow, it's over budget. Sorry, you have to do budget, you have to do value engineering. Then you change it again. And then in the end, when you go to the site, you still have some problem. You have to change it. So all those gaps, what's the problem with it? It's because we were starting from graphics. And the graphics doesn't contain any information, any rules, any reasons behind it. So we have to change manually. We see the data, those are numbers. The numbers incorrect, then we change the graphic. Because these two things is not associative to each other. It has to be like you change out from those like a simulation or consumption or the estimations. You have to change it. So this thing eventually is the problem of our current data format. Because the data format is not advanced yet. Even BIM is advanced than the CAD because it contains the information. However, BIM requires too much effort to do it. You know, in China, there's no architects want to do BIM. They always drawing in CAD. Then they throw this the CAD drawing to some like a render company. They build the BIM for them. It's not BIM for the design. It's the BIM to just as a kind of a submission document. So this is not the correct way because it's not reducing the work, but adding the workload for architects. So you don't want to use it. And we think the good way is, okay, machine can help you to generate this. And the machine can help you to change. If you change the data, the model will change. If you change the model, the data will change. But if you change the regulation, everything can be changed. So this is these three objects, or it's not objects, three elements are more really associated together. And in that way, we have realized the one particular field, which is MIC, Modular Integrated Construction, from the master planning from the beginning towards you can make it in a factory and assembly in on site. It's in entire chain. We made it. With AI, it's possible. So it's not just the one part of it as the design or as the cost estimation or as the connect to factory. It's the entire chain. We tested a project, I think several days ago or a couple of weeks ago. Guardians also issued a report about it and took an image. It was not a nice image because it's a MIC. It's a modular. Of course, it looks like a camp. It's just the extrusion of the building. Yeah. But with this modular, we can do a lot of things. Yeah, it's not the fault of the machine, but this is the fault of the architect's decision making. So the tool just still tools, but the tool can help us to really, to release our time to really focus on the thinking part. But if the time be released and the people still too lazy to think, to make decisions, of course you get the bad results.
Yeah. That's I'm still processing that. Super. That's
sorry
really,
too many.
No, it's
it's
super interesting. So you've got like to kind of summarize it a little bit. You've got like you got super dumb. A super dumb model, which is CAD or let's say a Rhino model. It's just geometry that we use. It's completely graphical. We literally just use it as a way to create renders and drawings. And then we've got the middleman, which is BIM, which is it's still graphical, but there's information inside of it. What you're describing is, I don't know if there's a word for it yet, but like we'll call it AI.
We call it ABC. Yeah, we call ABC in short.
Okay.
ABC.
What does ABC stand for? The
AI-driven BIM and cloud.
AI-driven BIM and cloud. Okay. So then we got ABC, where it's essentially, geometry with information inside of it, but it's intelligent. Like when you're saying the rules inside of it, of course, you're talking about regulations and all this kind of stuff, but also that the wall knows that it's good to place a window here because it's south facing and it's this high off the ground because that's how tall a human is, and all this kind of stuff. Would that be, what you mean by part of the rule sets?
Yes. It's a very similar to how we use the AI to generate the layout, the master plan. Our first product of Xkool is to generate master plan with the different tower topologies, and this is the way that we first are trying to combining deep learning algorithms like CNN with the expert system. The expert system is more like a regulation based or rule based. You have to make those constraints to fulfill the requirements, but the flexibility or the variations you need to be generated by a CNN to get a lot of possibility which can be filled to those requirements through the experience of the previous projects. So machine learned from previous projects and mimicking it.
Yeah.
So in this way, it's very similar to the details we do with the, for instance, in a room. The reason why we choose MIC because it's all like DFMA, design for manufacturing and assembling. All those components got standards, and it's from the factory, and all those components assembling, you need some rules to assemble together. It's very similar to the master planning.
Yeah.
So in this way, I always think architects can dealing with any scales. It's the same. Machine can dealing with all the scales as well. In previously, I mean the last generation or even 2 generations ago, the architects doing the master planning, the building, the interior, even the furniture, everything, because it's a similar in terms of the thinking, in terms of logic. And today the machine can do the same thing. Yeah, that is how we do it from the large scale towards the small scale, because the room be composed by the components, and the room can compose into a unit, and unit can compose to a floor plan of the building, and the floor plan can compose the building itself, and the building itself can also compose into a larger block. So this is a top down and bottom up can merge together through the machine. Because previously people or architects, we always can only do certain things in certain steps. For instance, we have to do a very rough sketch in the beginning. Then we do details. For instance, I draw a portrait of a people. I have to do a round shape, and then I do brow, eyes, and nose, and mouth. But then next step, I do more details and detail again. But machine don't do this. What machine do is like this. One time, everything done. That's because it's a processing parallelly in large scale, middle scale, and the smaller scale. This is how machine do things. Yeah. So
in that process, then, what is the role of the architect? Are you suggesting that it's coming up with many solutions and you're kind of pointing it in a direction, a little bit like how you were describing how REM Coolhouse would be that one at the end that looks at these two options, ask questions, and then say maybe go forwards with that or create some other variations of that. Is that what you kind of see? How does the architect interject in this kind of process?
Yeah, I think so. And there's a certain moments architects can interfere with the machine. We chopped into steps. Firstly, your inputs, that's the most important thing. You need to give order to the machine. The machine is just a machine. It cannot, it's not a super intelligence yet. So you have to tell the machine what to do. It's just like you ask the right question. That is the most important thing. So in the beginning, architects can really guide the machine to generate content. And then they generate a lot of contents. Then you need to make decision which direction to go. And there's a lot of steps to make those decisions. And eventually you can get what you want with the help of the machine. And we also, in the same time, when we design software, there's some little details of it. We have always two modes of this kind of 3D geometry generation softwares. First way is you input your parameters, your demands, and the machine generates outcomes to you. They give you 10, and maybe there's already 10,000 behind it.
Yeah.
This is one way. You make decision. You put input and you make decision. That's it. This is the one way. And the second way is the machine is more be guided by the architect. For instance, there's a plot. We can draw this area. I want high rise. This area, I want certain type of like a low rise, or this area, I want some villas. So this is a more like a architect still do the graphics, but do the zonings. No more like the guidance, or you can do some X to it, and the machine can do whatever you want it to do. So there's two ways. One is you can rely on the machine generates stuff to you and you make decision. And another is you work with it really in details. Yeah.
That's really, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, maybe I can send you some videos. Then later you can add on. It's more easy to explain that. Then
I think that'd be great, because then people will be able to actually see it. But that's it's really incredible. What do you feel like? Do you have any concerns for the future of architects? Are you excited about the future of architects, or should young architects be concerned about this rise of AI? I've even had some young students come up to me and be like, "Is there any point in studying architecture?" Because they see this mid-journey thing, and I'm like, "Yeah, of course. You know, this is just an image at the end of the day." But what's your thoughts on the future of architecture with AI? What do you have? Obviously, you're pro it coming, but like, should there be some concerns with architects? Like, would we all be kind of controlled by whatever this algorithm is behind whatever AI model that they have? What's your view on the future of like architects and the architecture practice?
I think first of all, if architects are more positive to embrace the new tech, they will find that there's a lot of possibilities in the future. And there was some young kids, just in the university, the students, they came to me say, what we should do after we graduate, should we change our major when we're still in the university? Is there any job for us in the future? I said, of course. When you go to any city, you just step into those alleys. There's a lot of things you can do. I mean, they're lacking of design everywhere, because there's a lot of problem not be detected, not be realized, not be fixed. Those things are the jobs of architects. Come on. The big world, the big cities, even small cities, small streets, there's a lot of things to do. So first of all, we have the demands, of course, always. And secondly, the AI is still tools. It's just like cars. We are not reasoning with the cars. Come on. We reason with people and we drive cars. So when some people drive cars, you still want to walk. No problem. That's your style. That's your choice. But people driving cars will make their speed much faster than the people who walk. And this is just different way of working. However, sorry, you want to say something?
No, go on.
Yeah. It's okay. Just interrupt me anytime. Yeah. So I think the car is similar as today as the AI. And in the future, perhaps, we are not driving cars anymore. There's autopilot, or like the car can drive itself.
Yeah.
But we need to give directions where to go, right? So the most important question again is where to go. Is not how to drive. Yeah,
that's a very nice analogy. Actually, I do like that. I was going to challenge you and be like, does AI? I actually push back when people say AI is just a tool, because I feel like AI, some of the AI stuff is crossing the line between a tool where it's almost like a collaborator, and no longer a tool like, a Grasshopper script, for example, that takes a facade and breaks it into panels, and it's reacting because of the sun or something. It's a very linear process. It's not really adding anything to the conversation. It's just essentially saving you a lot of time modeling, right?
Yeah.
But some of the examples I've seen from what you guys do, or even the image generation stuff, it can do what an intern, for example, could do, or a junior architect. It's adding ideas and it's bringing ideas to the table. And so at that point, does it cross the line between a tool to a collaborator in some sense? Do you think there's something in seeing AI less as a tool and more as a collaborator?
The reason why I still think it's a tool, because I think there's no thinking in it. So the previous thinking procedure we were talking about is not exist in the machine yet, except AGI. So still today, it can do certain things. It's more like a narrow AI, certain task. It can do perfect task. However, it cannot do the chain of thinking. And that is the key we consider. This is our collaborator. It's a contribute, not just one point. It's the entire thing.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. So until we got AGI, it's still a
that's the sci-fi it's going to.
The sci-fi side. Okay, super interesting. Well, I know we're almost up to an hour, it's been super interesting talking to you. Maybe a few final questions of let's say there's a young architect at university listening to this podcast. I think there's two things that are kind of interesting. One is what you're doing, and you're one of the few people I see doing actual AI, because there's a lot of people now that are like, hey, I'm an AI architect, and they're kind of masters at Midjourney or using ChatGPT. And also every plugin right now is suddenly overnight AI powered, because they've they use the ChatGPT API to fill out some information or something. It's really hard to find actual AI, if you know what I mean. So as a young architect, what advice would you give if they were really interested in pursuing, jumping into AI for architecture, or equipping themselves with these AI tools for architects? What would you advise for them to kind of look into or study or go and find this knowledge right now?
Yeah, I think first thing in the university, the kids is to really understand what is the role, the mission of architects. And then you will find what tool you need. Yeah, even though today there's some tool not smart yet, but you need it to do something, just work with it. It doesn't matter. But you need to understand the most important thing is who you are. And then you use tools, whatever tools, you will be confident. Even it's an AI tool, you won't feel, oh, it's taking my job. So I think firstly is to understand the role, and secondly, yes, if you want to see what is the real AI tool to help us, then study some tech basic theories. Let's say we wrote a book about we call it the guidebook to architects about AI, and. But sorry, that was in Chinese. Maybe we can translate someday.
Yeah,
but that was that was the book for our internal team, because in our team there are coders and architects. Some don't understand each other, and we help them to understand each other. So we start to writing some guidance, inscriptions, and what is the background, what is the theory behind it, etc. So we wrote this thing. Then someday we published it. I think in 2020. Neo claimed it's the first book about AI for architects, but that was the book we have. And with it, I think people will understand. AI is not new. there's also machine learning before, and the AI is a trend. There's a lot of models coming in and going on, and they will understand where to go in terms of the technology. And then they will have the confidence to choose what type of technology they want to adopt, what type of software or tools they want to adopt. So yeah, try to learn more about it. Then you will see it's not that difficult to find out which one is your favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. I almost wonder, do you think that's also the future composition of architecture practice? Like it'll be architects and technology people together, or I almost wonder, like, should you study architecture bachelor's and then you do CS, like computer science, as a master's or something like that, and you come up as like a half cyborg, half architect, like background. What do you see the future of practice? Is it more of a mix or these hybrid kind of characters?
I think each of the direction will have its own value. However, if you want to do if you want to do architecture in a more technical way, you don't have to study computer science, to be honest, because computer science is really a large team, heavy source of manpower required industry. With one or two people, it's very difficult to develop something out. Of course, with some others resources, some open source, yes, of course, you can use to do something. But if you want to create something with a small team, it's very difficult, especially today. So if you want to understand the logic behind, of course, you always need to take the course of AI or computer science. I heard there's a primary school, they have an AI course already. So take it from your high school or so. It doesn't matter. Yeah, if you like computer science, you can just go for it. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And I always think cross-discipline is the future of every those disciplines. It's not just architecture, everything. Because all the industry, our university was designed for industry society. All the majors are fit to each of the industry, but in the future won't be like that. A lot of things mixed together, and all the old industry or traditional industry will be reformed by the new techs. So it's good to combine all the time.
Yeah. Cool. And my final question I'm asking everyone at the moment is there any technology or thing on the horizon that is really exciting you? And of course, for you, you're not allowed to answer anything AI. Is there something that's coming up that's you see maybe plugging into what you're doing? For example, this game engine world, Unreal, and all that kind of stuff. Like, I almost find those two worlds are colliding, right? Is there something like that on the horizon that is really exciting you in terms of like the AEC space? I guess you mentioned the MMC and stuff like that. But what's exciting you outside of AI?
I think there's two things. One is the virtual world, or more into the virtual world, is like a Vision Pro. I think that is something can really mix our virtual experience with the reality. And this is something that the architects might really dealing with in the future. We might not build that much in the physical world anymore, perhaps, but still there's an issue need to resolve, of course. But we also have a bunch of people doing virtual design in the in that space, mix the reality with the virtual experience. So this is something I think is very interesting. Another is the space technology. I always so into it. I think we are heading to this interplanet species. Yeah, we need to go to the moon, to the Mars, to everywhere else. Yeah.
Actually, we didn't even get to touch on space architecture.
Unfortunately.
We'll have to get you back for a special space AI architecture discussion, because there's some really interesting combinations about how AI can be used to expand traveling to Mars and beyond, which is super exciting. So we'll get you back for an AI space talk, because it's also my new favorite topic as well. So
great, my pleasure.
Loads more to discuss.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I think this has been one of my most mind-blowing talks I've had on the podcast. So thank you so much for coming. I really think you are one of the pioneers of this AI movement for architects, and I'm definitely going to keep a close eye on what you guys are doing. And I'll put as many links as I can find in the video below, so people can go and check out Xkool, LookXai, and all the other kind of stuff that you're doing. So, and hopefully, let me know if that book is ever translated into English, because it sounds like a good one. For sure. Well, maybe I have to really quickly learn Chinese, but that might take a while.
We can translate it with the help of ChatGPT.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll just do that. Well, thank you so much, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Hopefully, Wanyu will have you on the podcast almost in the future. Maybe we need to do it regularly to catch up on all the amazing stuff you're doing. And we'll be back in a few weeks with our next podcast. I think we're going to stay on the topic of AI, so we'll keep this discussion going. But thank you once again, Wanyu, and we'll see you guys very soon.
Thank you, Oni. Thank you, everyone. Nice to talk to you.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.